Good morning, and welcome to this session of Finding New Life in Jesus while quarantined. I'm very excited about today's study, today's session that we have. You know, when we are in a crisis like we're in now, a worldwide crisis of the coronavirus, and we hear about it striking other countries all over the world, many times it causes us to think about time, about history, about the age that we are in. And some begin to ask, is this the end of time? Is this crisis predicted? Is this crisis a precursor to something else happening? Well, as we look in history, we see that many times plagues have swept over the world, much worse than the coronavirus. 1916, 1917, the Spanish flu swept across America and Europe, killing millions of people. And before that, the bubonic plague, the Black Plague, swept across Europe. It is estimated at one point at its height that the plague killed 30 to 50% of the population. Imagine that. Whole towns and cities disappeared. And so history is full of other instances wherein situations as we're in today have happened. And so it is not necessarily a prediction of the end of time. There's an interesting chapter in Matthew the 24th, in Matthew 24, interesting chapter in the Bible where Jesus deals with history and time and events that are coming. And so that's the chapter I like for us to focus on today. So when you have time, read chapter 24. But let me explain to you a little bit what's happening. There are two parts to Matthew 24. The first part deals with an event that is going to happen very soon. The destruction of Jerusalem and of the temple. A horrible event, terrible event, very catastrophic. And Jesus tells the people to be prepared, and he warns them about this event that is coming. But the second part of chapter 24 of Matthew does deal with the end of time, when Jesus returns. And there are some important things that Jesus wants us to know about the end of time. The first thing he wants us to know is nobody knows when it's going to happen. No one knows the day or the hour, not the angels, not the Son, Jesus says. And so it's useless for us to try to predict that time or for anyone to try to predict that time. Many have tried to do in the past and have been embarrassed because none of their predictions have come true, and they never will. Because that's not our purpose and our plan. That's not what God has for us to do. You know, one day, Jesus will return. One day, history will end. God started this world. He created it. And one day when he decides, and it is time, he will end it. And no one knows when that will happen. When Jesus was getting ready to ascend in Acts, the first chapter, the disciples asked him, Lord, are you going to restore the kingdom of Israel at this time? In other words, is this the historical event when Israel is restored and time ends and history takes a turn? And Jesus says to them, it's none of your business. Stay in your lane. Well, no, that's my translation. Actually, he says, that's God's business. God knows. He'll set the time and the date for those events. Your part is to be my witnesses. The Holy Spirit will come on you, and you'll be my witnesses. Judea, Jerusalem, the uttermost parts of the earth. You will tell others about me. That's your part to play. And that's exactly what Jesus says in the other parts of the gospel where he deals with the end of time. In all of these passages, in Luke 12, in Matthew 24, the theme is this. No one knows when it's going to happen. It's going to come at an unexpected time. And we are to be faithfully watching for that event, anticipating it. And how are we faithfully watching? How do we anticipate it? By being faithful, serving God, doing our part, continually serving him. As Dr. Callen said, faithful in the meantime, doing what we are supposed to do. You know, when we are in this crisis we're in now, and things are turned upside down and life is very different than our normal life is. We're staying at home. Sometimes maybe we're not going to work. People aren't gathering. We're not having church services, which I really miss. What are we to do? Well, we are to be faithful to God. We are to serve Him. We are to still be salt and light to this world around us. How do we do that? First of all, by not having anxiety and fear. You know, fear is the opposite of faith. We need to live in such a way that we show that we know God is in control, that He is in charge of history, and He is in charge of what is happening now, and one day it will end. And we need to be faithful to Him, serving others, and when we have opportunity to do so, witnessing for Him when we have opportunity to do so, and how we live is a witness. When we live without fear, when we live without anxiety, when we live faithful, serving others as Jesus would serve them, we live in such a way that we know that our history is in God's hands, and that whatever happened is in His control, and that He is faithful. And we look at the birds of the air, and we know that if God takes care of them, He is going to take care of us, and He will during this time. And so let me encourage you to be faithful in the meantime, to serve God. Yes, history will end one day. I don't know when it will happen. No one knows, but God does. And I'm excited and anticipating that. But I'm excited and anticipating it by being faithful. In Luke 12, Jesus says, "Blessed is the man that the master finds doing his work, being faithful." And that's the person I want to be, the person that is faithful. And so when Jesus comes, I'm not shocked by it. I've been expecting Him, but I've found working. I'm found doing what I'm supposed to do. So be faithful this week. Serve God. Do what He's called you to do. Be salt and light in your community. Serve those around you. Live without fear. That is a witness to the presence of God in your life. Check out the links I will also post with this. And I'll see you Sunday morning, 10 a.m. for a live broadcast of our service from church. Thank you for joining us today, and I'll see you later. Bye.